Hey, everybody. Welcome to Why Am I Yelling Live on a Thursday? Because last week we had a hurricane in Connecticut and New York City, and I had no power. So my guest, Sheila Mack, could not join me, unfortunately. So we have decided to reschedule it for today. So join me in welcoming my guest, Sheila Mack. Sheila is an author of the book that is newly released, Bootstraps Bra Straps, the formula to go from rock bottom and back into action in any situation. This book was written for those who have shown up for everyone else, invested in their life in a career, relationship, or family, and have hit rock bottom. I know a lot of people who has happened to, and now they're ready to for a formula to reinvent and reboot their lives on their terms. I am very excited to have you here. Thank you for being here, Sheila. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. Yes. Well, I'm glad you have your power back, and now we're all rebooting this year, and so I'm happy to share about my new book and how that started.
I'm excited to hear it. So let's go. I mean, I'm imagining that this is an autobiography or nonfiction of sorts, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
So yes, I like to say of sorts because, sometimes things get moved around. But tell me how this came about, where it started, and what the story is behind it.
I've had a really interesting life, and we all have. We've had so many beautiful and interesting things happen. When I was back in 2017, I had finished traveling, and I traveled and lived on the road for 7 years straight. So I got to the point where I needed to get a house and get everything nice. So I finally saved up again and got everything ready, bought a beautiful house in Ventura, and I closed escrow. And then a month later, on the same day, on the 3rd of December, I closed on November 3rd, my house burned down. It was the first night I was going to sleep in the house. And you know how you paint the walls and you fix everything,
yes,
and you make it beautiful and all that. And my daughter was moving over with me and all this. So it was so exciting. And then I had brought all the furniture. Everything was in its place for once in my life. Things were organized, the whole nine. And I drove back and I saw the fires on the way, and it was miles of fire. I've never seen anything like it. I've lived in California my whole life. And so by the time I got home, we had 20 minutes to evacuate. The power was out already. So we're using the cell phone little flashlight to try to grab things. I grabbed my cat. I grabbed a few boxes, and, I had one shoe and one,
There's no rhyme or reason to that.
It was a mess. And, you lose your valuable pictures, paper, documents, those kind of things were the worst. You couldn't even see. And yeah. And so I got out, and people were going to shelters. I fortunately had a little mobile home that was a prefab house. It was up in a canyon. And so I was a super host with a vacation rental, and I had rented it all out. I mean, believe it or not, how do you make something like a mobile home into a 5-star super host place where people repeated, they visited, they had their honeymoons there.
Wow.
Up in the hills, and it had this big yoga deck, and it was this beautiful view, and I made it beautiful. And so anyway, I had the shed where the towels were stored. There was a washroom there, but not a shower. There wasn't a kitchen, and it was about 400 square feet. So I said, I'll just stay there, better than the shelter, because it's going to be a while. So
that's crazy.
Yeah. So here I am with the cat, the boxes, in this little teeny room, and with barely enough room to move. And so with all that, I did start to get a little depressed. And the next day, a friend visited, and I said, "Welcome to the Sheila Mack Show," because it was so stupid. It was that's where that term came from.
That's amazing.
Reality at its finest, right? And at that,
totally.
She opened the door. My cat bolted out. We never saw the cat again. And then one of my 6 children, I have 6, 3 of mine, 3 I adopted, so they're all mine. Okay. And one of the boys borrowed one of my only car, and he crashed the car. Now, he was fine, but the car was totaled.
I mean, can it get worse?
I know. I was like, okay, what what is going on here? And, obviously I've done a lot of training in personal development and all that. So I said, I got to put this to the test.
Yep.
I
Yep.
need to change because I was getting depressed. I wasn't getting dressed up. I wasn't going to the gym. I was just sitting there like in shock. And
Right.
it just, depression is really subtle. I've never really had it. I don't do depression, but it's so subtle you don't notice it until you're pretty deep in it.
Right.
And I felt
Right.
like, wow, this is pretty deep in it. So I had to make a change. I had this rebounder for the guests. So I pull out the rebounder and I start jumping up and down. I started doing affirmations, all these like personal development positive things that people looked at me, my neighbors there up in these mobile homes, thought I was Looney Tunes crazy. Like, what in the hell is she doing? Doesn't she see the smoke? It's still burning. you know and I'm you know just trying to make the best out of the situation. I'm making my little 400 square feet clean and pretty
Yeah.
as I can,
Yeah.
and making do with what we have. Like when your power was out, you just make do. And my son brought over his beater car, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna let you have this to
Right.
use. And it's like $6,000 in repairs. I had to put brakes because I'm up in a canyon and you don't
Right.
want to like die. So so I had to do that. And I decided to go to the dollar store. I put the stickers blessed and flow and
Right.
abundance in the inside of the visor.
That's
And
amazing.
I bought the steering wheel cover. I mean, it was a beater car where you roll down the window still. Yes,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
still make that. And so it was really like I got demoted in every level of my life in like 4 days. And
Amazing.
and I decided this is how I'm going to do things. I'm going to be in a different state. I'm going to be different. And before you know it, I have been doing real estate since I was in my early 20s. I got invited to work in Beverly Hills. I ended up moving within a month. And and going, first I stayed with one of the ladies that had a big, I don't know, 8,000 square foot place, and
Right.
here,
Right.
rent a room, whatever. And then I got my own place. And I mean,
Right.
it was just really beautiful how things shifted because there was a difference. And I
Yep.
noticed that my friends, because we're all on the same boat in that area, most of them were still like complaining and crying
Exactly.
and stress. Yeah. And they were like, how the heck did you do that? So I go back to my little shed and
My gratitude shed.
yes, and I'm there and I'm, packing up my belongings to move into my place. And I thought, wow, I felt so alone. And I wanted to change that for one. And then I thought, let me write down, what did I do differently than everybody else that I was around everywhere? And what I did differently was the Boots formula is what I came up with. And it was something I've done my whole life. And that was when my book, Bootstraps and Bra Straps, was born. That was
I
the
love it.
first concept of it, is how do we pull ourselves back up and into action after going through a tough time. So so that was the start of the book.
So now in the book, because I don't
Yes.
want you to reveal too much. I mean, there's your formula, and I'm not going to have you like give us your formula because that would be too much. But are there stories? Are these your stories, or are there stories of other people in this book that you have helped through this formula
Both.
find success?
Both. Both are in there, and so that's what makes it different. And I will share my formula because my goal is that I
Oh,
want people,
share.
yes, because I want people to be able to go through and get as much help as they can during this year, because this is like a
Yeah.
serious life shift for
Yeah.
many people. And so I want them to be able to apply that as soon as possible. So my formula is Boots, Boots. So the letter B is for being. It's about who you're being in all
Writing this
you
down.
do, and who do you need to be? Who do you need to show up as in order to get the results you desire? So the person I was being when I was shocked and sitting there depressed in that little shed was not the person I needed to be in order to end up moving to Beverly Hills and having all these beautiful things unfold. I
Right.
had to shift who I was being. And it didn't matter how humble it was or how that beater car looked or whatever was going on.
Right.
It was who I was being despite these difficult situations. And this year, it's what we're going through. And,
Yeah.
and who do we need to be in order to get the best results out of this year? The next one is for orientation. Oh, and that's saying this is not better than it is. It's not worse than it is, but it is what it is. And
Is what it is. Right.
yes, and then you have to like say, this is where I'm at on the map. And you have to be really honest about that. You know, I have O in the bank and I used to have X.
Yeah.
How do I get to where I need to go again? Because it's all moved. You know, this year it's, you know, your plans in the beginning of January
Right.
2020.
Right. I have O in the travel because there's none of that happening. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And everything had to shift. And so that's where you have to be really honest about where we are now after a situation that's outside of ourselves. We can't control it, but we can control our response. And the next one is order of operations. So that's, now we're getting mathematical. And that's where you actually go ahead and you do things in a certain order. And the order in which you do everything makes all the difference. So the order I did things was I had to get where I was at beautiful and as best I could and get in that good state first. And that, you know, people aren't going to hire you if you look like, you know, I just went through hell. And
Yeah,
you know,
right,
like,
right.
well,
All my clothes are burned and I'm wearing like other people's stuff. But yeah, no, I get it.
yeah, you have to, you know, there's a certain order, just like in your day. If you get up early and you go do your exercise and your meditation, whatever you do, you have a better day and you're more productive at work. So it's the order in which you do things. And then the T is for thinking, and that's the mindset. So that's where, I mean, I had to do some personal development work on myself because everybody else I could call, they were calling me and I was giving them pep talks, but I had to like talk to myself in my mind and say, hey, you know, I've got to keep my mindset right. Yeah, I mean, the neighbors were laughing at me in that little mobile home community because they're like, oh, do you think she's going to get out of this one? And I'm like, yeah, I got this.
Yeah.
It's mindset. It's really mindset. Do you give up? Do you choose suffering, or, you know, or do you decide, okay, this is a painful situation, but I'm not going to choose suffering. I'm going to move forward. So that's where the mindset comes in. And the last piece is the S for stepping up. And that's where you have to take action. You have to have faith in yourself, in your ability, in your best self to be able to get the results that you desire. And so those are the steps.
I love every single one of them. And I think that they are all so important in reinventing yourself. I'm listening to you talk, and it is reminiscent of, so 6 years ago, I was in a corporate job, had a lot of responsibility, making a lot of money, doing all the things, and there was a toxic work environment going on. Mm-hmm. And I was the kind of person who was like, I'm not going to let anybody know about this. I'm just going to deal with it. And I'm going to try and not let it spill over into my personal life, which is exactly what did not happen. And it led to burnout, complete and total burnout, 2 kids, 2 houses, a marriage, all the things. Right. And it was like, I needed to do something for me. And I'm not sure if that was my rock bottom, but it was probably pretty close. Right. And I had to figure out how to pick myself up from my bootstraps and figure out what was going to be the next thing for me. And so I ended up quitting my job and jumping without a parachute and getting the support of my husband, who said, now is the time. I mean, I know that you're like, we think that we're old because we were at the time 41 or whatever, but it's like, we still have the rest of our lives and we have these 2 young kids and we can figure this out. Right. But it's really important to do it's so funny because I did every single one of these things.
Exactly.
Yep. But you don't know that until you're in it, right? You don't know it until you have the mindset to say, I'm getting up every day and it can always be worse. And I'm going to figure out how to feel good.
Mm-hmm. Very, very true. You know, and I go back to what instilled all this in me. That, you know, determination to like not say, okay, I give up. This is like so stupid. I give up, you know, so many bad things at once. How could it get worse? Right. And I go all the way back to when I was a little girl, maybe 4 or 5 years old, and I was living with my grandparents at the time. And my parents had gotten divorced, and so I was going from home to home, and I was with my grandparents. And my grandmother was this incredible, very feminine businesswoman,
Yeah.
believe it or not. And all her neighbor friends were all in the same boat. They ran businesses. And this was back in the day where that was different.
That was
That
not
was,
a thing.
yes.
Yeah.
And so I had these powerful, incredible women all around me. And they would sit down and have coffee and tea, and they would talk about their past. And you'd hear stories of one lady, her entire family lost their lives in a
Right.
concentration camp, and
Right.
she's here now, and she's got a beautiful home, and a husband and grandkids, and all these rich stories of her life. And another lady, her and her husband ran away from the country where the ruler changed, and
Yep.
so they left everything. They
Yep.
literally had the clothes on their back, and they did not speak a word of English.
Right. Right.
And yet here they are. They were able to buy a home, build a life, start over again. And so many of these ladies had these stories, and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm this little kid that to be seen and not heard, so they don't think about me. I'm in the room, but
Right. But
and
you're listening.
I'm listening. And I thought, oh my gosh, in life we're going to have these crazy shifts that happen that are out of our control, but we can be strong like these stoic, incredible women, and we can get through this. And we need a community, and that's where the community part, I have a Facebook community where people
Great.
can connect and talk with each other and share their stories. I have Sheila Mack's show where people share their stories and what they've gone through, so that we can all relate and get through this year and this time together. And so that was really what made the difference, because I said, well, if they can make it, I'm going to make it. Yeah.
That such great examples. There's such great examples and such true to life examples. I feel like prior to this year happening, you have 6 kids, God bless. I have 2, right? They are 14 and 8 at this moment in time. But I worry about our kids because we've either done a really good or a really bad job as parents in our society with overindulging our children in stuff, right? And I worry about them crashing and burning too early in their lives because they don't really know what it feels like to not want something or to fail. I don't love the word fail because there's always a learning opportunity behind it, but if this pandemic has taught us one thing, it's taught everybody something, right? I feel like our kids have had to learn how to be more resilient because now they're not in school, and like life changed on a dime for them, right? And we've had it happen. I mean, for as many times as we've had it happen to us, you with a fire, me with my job, I lived through 9/11, like all this stuff, right? We figured it out.
Yes.
But now it's happening to younger generations. And I wonder, and I would like your opinion on this, if you think that is going to positively impact the movement for humanity forward.
Oh, I think it is. I think it's the biggest gift. It's a difficult, terrible time in some ways, the best of times, the worst of times, right?
Agreed. Yes.
And so with that, you think about, now there's not this entitlement. Now it's not instant gratification. In some towns, we can't even get Postmates and Uber Eats.
Yes,
100%. And you can't just go party with your friends. And then now they're having living history with all the things that are going on in our world, and people fighting for rights and everything. Living history, like I had with those women telling their stories. These are real life. And so now they care. They're like, let me look up this pandemic. Let me look up, the different racial situations that happened in the past and where we are now. And let me ask the questions that need to be asked. And so it's like, you have to care.
Yeah.
You have to like wake up, and it's not all about you. And that's where, it's really a gift, because these are going to be the leaders of the future, and they're going to lead from a very strong place. This is going to give everybody strength, resilience, patience. I mean, how many months have we had to be patient staying home? Some of us haven't. I mean, my family and I, we worked and went to school and did everything out, all day. And yeah, and now, to be home that much, what is the gift of that is like getting to know your family again and getting close to your kids, hearing their, what's really going on with them and their friends. And then
Yeah.
even with all my kids, their friends, they're like, oh, well, I didn't know my friends would think that, or, not be responsible this way or that way, or, what are they thinking? And they're changing that. And they're like, well, that doesn't really align with who I am and where I'm at.
That is so interesting. And I think that's so enlightening for them
Mhm.
and not easy, right? Because kids are very impressionable.
Yes.
And oftentimes they are afraid to buck the system,
Mhm.
right? They're afraid to say, that's not the right thing to do, or I don't want to hang out with this person because I don't believe what they're doing is right, or whatever, right?
Mhm.
It's hard for them to step up and be leaders because they don't really know how to do it, right? They've followed, not that they've followed everybody, but they're watching society and they're watching humanity and they're watching all this stuff, but a lot of times they're so insular, they don't,
Mhm.
right? It's like, I'm just going to do what my friends do. I think that is a great point, right? Like they are eventually going to be leading what is happening in our world, right? And so um that's really good insight. I love that.
Yes, that makes all the difference. And it's the universal pause is the nice way to put this
Yeah.
year, right? This pandemic. And I thought, oh my gosh, this year my book was supposed to come out in January. And not kidding, what happened? My youngest son had a heart condition and he passed away in December 21st.
I am so sorry.
Yeah, and it was, although he started having the symptoms in fifth grade, and we were always worried, it was like the doctors did ablation, they did everything. It was Wolf
Uh,
Parkinson White, and he was supposed to be fine. But there's always a 1 or 2% chance, whatever.
yeah.
So he's at his grandparents' house, went to bed. He texted me good night. He did not wake up.
How old?
21,
Oh,
yeah. And so it was okay, you know what, not what really matters, you get,
nothing really
yeah.
mattered except that. Right.
And you think, okay, does this, you have to put things on hold and be patient. Oh my gosh, I wrote this book, I want to get it out to help people, but holy smokes, I think I wrote
Right.
it for myself. And we went through steps, and my first chapter is on getting through grieving and how to go through that process. And then there's activities and resources additional. We did grief counseling, the whole 9 yards. It's you have
Yeah.
to do everything that you need to do. And so that's what we went through. And I was so grateful when I had all the kids in the backyard and we were having a barbecue. And my daughter says, oh, if there was ever a year we needed a universal pause, it was this year
It's this one.
for our family. And I was like, yeah. And the kids are closer and we're closer and we have all these beautiful talks and walks because there's nothing else to do. And
Right.
I mean, I've never seen so many movies. I haven't seen this many movies in my entire life as this year. Okay, let's watch this. I'm like, all right,
All right. What else are we gonna do?
walk and all these things, but it's also connecting. And the things that we're watching that the kids are picking out, they're adults, but they're young adults, college, and they're picking things that actually are important about our history and about things that matter that are related to today, so they can figure out, well, what are we doing, and what do we need to look forward to, whatever. So it's a little different. It's not just aimless.
Yeah. I
Mhm.
think that's important. I think, a lot of times the word intentional has been coming up in my conversations with my clients and even with my friends and stuff. It's like being intentional with what you want to do, who you want to participate with, who you want to hang out with, the organizations that you want to align yourself with, right? There's a lot of stuff going on above and beyond this pandemic.
Right.
So I think, right, universal pause and being patient and being thoughtful about just humanity in general is a really great thing. And I think that, using the Boots formula is a really great way for us individually or with our partner or as a family to like really sit down. Everyone's getting ready to go back to school. Like the anxiety that is happening between all the people that I know is like all the way up here, right? It's like people are, we don't know what to do. We don't know what the right answer is. We don't know any of it, right? So just really sitting down and thinking about what the right things to do, I think that's really important. And I think it's a gift that you have just given to the world, honestly.
Well, and depending on where you live, some people still don't get to go to school.
Right.
So that's another issue, is how do you deal with a new work-life balance, because now work is home and the kids are home, and when you have younger kids, they can't just go
It's
plug
hard.
into anything.
Mm-mm.
They need supervision, they need somebody around,
Yeah.
and so I've had kids that I know, parents that their kids have never failed a class, that failed like 3 classes because it was just they didn't have enough of a structure, I guess, or
Right.
whatever, and they were straight A students.
Right.
So, or maybe they just this is just a lot to take
It's a
in
lot.
anybody. Yes, and so that makes a big difference. So it is what it is, but it is making us stronger, and it's a gift. And everything we have to look up as a gift of what is it going to give us when we get to the other side. We can choose that. So we get to choose, are we going to be happy now, today, with little things like imagine families laughing and playing again
Right.
and doing crazy, stupid things. We got to do a lot of that as parents because we're the leaders. If you're the leader of your company, leader of your home, whatever you're leading, when you show up, your energy as the parent or the leader of the company is going to make all the difference. Or even as a coworker, how you show up, have you, like we were talking about toxic work environment, you can feel somebody's energy.
100%.
Yes, and you're like, whoa, that one just walked in the room.
Yeah.
Or, oh my gosh, I'm so happy to see so and so. This is great, and you get more done when you take those breaks, when you stop and play. I have a whole chapter on self-care and doing those things that we need more than ever. Instead of going into survival mode, when we take care of ourselves, we're able to, slowly go through a
Yeah.
formula or steps. The steps that I made are steps that I would go to my daughter or my sons or my best friend and say, hey, okay, this just happened.
Yeah.
Let's sit down and let's go through these things. You're going to do it on your terms. I'm not saying how to do it. You're
Right.
going to design your life on your terms. So the last chapter is lifestyle redesign. So this is the time, like you were telling your story about how you and your family went through a shift and you changed the work and things that
Yeah.
you were doing. You did that on your terms, and it was a whole better situation.
Yep.
Yes. So that's, the blessing and the gift in it.
I love it.
Is-
We're running out of time. So here's what I want you to do. Tell everybody, because I'm going to put all this stuff in the comments. Where can we find you? How can they join your Facebook group? How can we get the book? I know you sent me all the links. We're going to put all that stuff in the comments after the show notes happen. But you guys need to get her book. Show us your book again.
Okay. So here it is. Bootstraps and Bra Straps. It's the formula to go from rock bottom back into action in any situation. And so you can get a free Boots meditation and the whole Boots process. And that's if you go to sheilamac.com/boots meditation. And if you go to sheilamac.com, there's plenty of extra free resources, activities. There's activities at the end of each chapter and free gifts, depending on what you're looking to reboot at this time.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Thank you for being here. You are a joy and such a bright light. I love it. I'm so glad that I've gotten to know you through. We met another one through the Beyond TV Challenge, Chris and Jen. So thank you for them for bringing us together. We are going to say goodbye to everybody out there. So I hope you guys, I keep thinking today's Friday. I don't even know why, but it's Thursday. But anyway, have a great weekend. And we'll be back here next week with another episode of Why Am I Yelling Live? Thank you, Sheila, for being here. And we will see you guys also soon.
All right. Thank you.
Stay there.